Hello my lovely people and welcome to this channel. This is Jack, and here on this channel we help you elevate your guitar playing no matter where you are right now in your guitar journey. So today we're going to talk about this very beautiful and interesting topic, which is chords in general, right? So finally you're going to understand why we have major chords, minor chords, augmented, diminished, suspended chords. What's the difference between all of these? So don't worry at all, because I'll be giving you all the diagrams you need with this lesson. So it's gonna be a long lesson, okay? Like, you have to really take your time and practice all the diagrams and all the shapes I'm giving you. Okay, so by now you probably already know how to play these chords, some of these chords actually, in open position or as bar chords, and you might even know how to play seventh chords. But we're gonna dive more into the theory of things. So what you need to know is that today we're only talking about triads. Okay, triads, which means a chord that is constituted by three notes, three unique notes. So when I play that G chord, for instance, it's a triad, right? However, we're playing six strings. That's because some of these notes are doubled, right? But it doesn't matter. It's still a triad because we only have three unique notes. In this case, the three unique notes are G, B, and D. And then we're repeating those notes. We got another G here, we got another B here, or a D, depending on how you finger the G chord, and then another G note. Okay, so G, B, D, three unique notes. We're going to talk about the triads, the major triad, minor triad, and then what other triads do we have? We have the augmented, the diminished. And we can also add to those the suspended chords, okay, sus2 and sus4, and we're going to talk about how these are different from the Add9. So let's start with the first rule I need you to understand. What you need to know is that the major scale is our reference. The major scale is always what we get back to. We refer ourselves to that major scale whenever we try to figure out the formula of a certain triad, or whatever we try to figure out what are the notes that form a certain chord. Okay, so you probably already know the major scale, but if you don't, I'll just show it to you real quickly. We're gonna play that major scale in G just so I can show you the shape of it, and then later on we can take that major scale and really move it to any other key, okay, depending on the chord we're playing. So if I'm playing a D major chord, then I gotta refer back to the D major scale. If I'm playing a C major chord or a C minor chord, I gotta refer back to the C major scale. Alright, so here's the major scale we use it. I'll be playing the standard shape that goes like this. There you go. That's one octave. Okay, so G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Now, traditionally we can keep going, right, with another octave. A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. But for the purpose of this lesson, we really only need one octave, right? Again, we need the major scale to just find the notes. So let's go. For the major chord or the major triad, what I actually need is to take the first note of the scale, the third note of the scale, and the fifth note of the scale, put them together, and then I get a major chord or a major triad. So in the case of G major, it's this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the three notes. So 1, 3, 5. And these notes are G, A, B, C, D. So G, B, D. Da, 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 da. And it's giving me a major chord. Now here's another rule I need you to understand, is that every single time I have these three notes together, right, no matter where I'm playing them on the fretboard and no matter how I'm playing them, meaning it doesn't matter if G comes first or if B comes first or if D comes first. It doesn't matter, but as long as I have these three notes together, I have a G major chord. Obviously, you might ask me, okay, but how do I know? Like, if I have a B, D, and then G, how do I know that this is a G major chord? Well, obviously, by experience, you will get to know what are the notes inside which chord. So, check this out. This is a G. This is a G, obviously, chord. This is a G chord. This is a G chord. This is a G chord, and I keep going and going and going. But the point is, every shape that I showed you here is kind of different. For the first shape, for instance, we have G, B, D, followed by G, B, G. The second shape is G, D, G, followed by B, D, G. So you see the order is different, but nonetheless it's the same chord. It's a G major chord. Now, I could just not rely on any shape and just try to match those notes together. For instance, I could just be like, okay, this is my D note over here. This is a B note here. This is a G note here. There you go. I get a G major chord, or triad, right? And it sounds awesome. It sounds kind of exotic. It's different than the others. You're getting this, right? Hopefully you are. All right, so now let's move on to the minor triad. So for the minor triad, it's the same principle. I gotta take a look at a chord, take the first note, the flat 3, okay, so which means the flattened third note, and then the fifth note. So when I say 1, flat 3, and 5, it means the third note is flattened compared to what? The major scale, which is our reference. Remember I said that. So that's our major scale. That's the third note. Now when I say flat 3, it means I need to flatten this note, which means I bring it back 1 fret. So now I have 1, 2, flat 3, 4, and then 5. Okay, and these are my notes. 1, flat 3, and then 5. Okay, that's how I get my minor triad. And my notes are G, B flat, and then D. Okay, so remember that these formulas, right, for the major it's 1, 3, 5, for the minor it's 1, flat 3, 5, designate the scale degree. So 1 is the first degree of the scale, 3 is the third degree of the scale, or the third note of the scale, and 5 is the fifth note of the scale, or the fifth degree of the scale. Now some of you might already know the minor scale and might be asking yourselves, or not, why am I not using the minor scale to figure out the minor chord? Well, you can. But again, this minor scale is also built upon the major scale, right? So it's a variation of the major scale. So remember, no matter what you do, you always go back to the major scale. For those of you theory nerds that know the formula of the minor scale, which is 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, the natural minor that is, then you know that all these flats are there because we're trying to discern the scale from the major scale. All right, so this was a theory, parentheses here. If you're not familiar with what I just said, please don't worry. Just stick to what I've explained before, which is the formula of the minor chord or the minor triad is 1, flat 3, and 5. And now I'm gonna play this minor triad all over the fretboard. So there you go. Here's another one. Another one, and everything I said before still holds true here, which is whenever I have these 3 notes together, I have a G minor triad. Okay, no matter what's coming first. All right, before moving on to the augmented, the diminished, and the sus chords, let's try to do that same exercise, but in another key. Let's suppose we want to play in the key of D. So let's figure out what are the notes of the D major triad. But first, let's take a sip of our favorite beverage. So whatever you're having, coffee or whatever. Nice. Okay, let's play that D major scale. So this is my D note. Alright, and this is my D major scale. Let's pick the first, the third, and the fifth note to create a D major triad. So D, E, F sharp, G, A. So my 1, 3, 5 are D, F sharp, A. Alright, and this is why and how I get this shape of the D chord. You probably know that. Okay? Now some of you might be asking yourselves, okay, so if I know the chord, why don't I just look at the chord and figure out what are the notes? You can do that. However, as I mentioned before, some of the shapes are not in order of appearance. On the piano, it's really easy. You have the 1, then the 3, then the 5. On the guitar, because of how the instrument is, sometimes these are mixed up. I might have the 5, the 1, and then the 3, or the 5, and then the 3, and then the 1. It doesn't matter. So for instance, for this shape, what we have here is the D, which is the 1. Then I have the A, which is the 5. Then I have D, which is the 1. Then I have F sharp, which is the 3. So this is an example of how things are not in order. If I want the The right order, I need to play this shape, D, F sharp, A, this shape of the D major chord, or triad. Okay, so that's our D major. Now let's do the D minor. Remember, all I have to do is take that third and flatten it. So it's 1, 3, becomes flat 3, and then 5. So I'll have to play F instead of F sharp, and that's how we get this shape. That was D, and I bring this note back 1 fret, and I get D minor. That's my D minor triad. Alright, so let's move on from here to the augmented triads. So I'm just gonna give you that formula for the augmented. It's 1, 3, and then sharp 5. Sharp 5 means I'm gonna take that 5th degree and I'm gonna move it up 1 fret or a half step. So in the case of D, my 5 is A, right? We've already established that. So all I have to do is bring that A up 1 fret. So now instead of this chord, I get this chord. Ooh, spooky. Now you might not use the augmented chord in, you know, your regular pop and rock songs. It's mainly present in those jazz type of songs or exotic type of songs. And if you're just playing the major and the natural minor, you might not encounter this. Actually, this chord is not in these keys, but for instance, if we play the harmonic minor or the melodic minor, we will find those types of chords. Again, everything is possible, right? Even if a song isn't just in the major key, that is very traditional, let's say, with a very common chord progression, you might find the odd chord that is coming from outside, right? So everything is permitted in songwriting, so we never exclude anything. But I'm just saying that generally you will not find those types of chords. Now the cool thing about this chord is that it's symmetrical, which means it's built on major third intervals. Now we're going into the theory of things, so again, I don't want to turn this into something very complicated, but what you need to know is that the same distance that we have between the D note and the F sharp is the same distance between the F sharp and the A sharp. Okay, and this is what makes this chord symmetrical. So D, F sharp, A sharp. Okay, which means that every single time I move this chord up a major third, I'm gonna get the exact same chord, but with a different note order, or what we call inversion. Check this out. All of these are the same chord, okay? But it's just another inversion of that same chord. Alright, moving on to the diminished chord. So let's take a look at that diminished chord. The formula is also very easy. It's 1, flat 3, and flat 5. It's very easy to figure out this chord if we start with a minor triad, okay? So let's go to the minor triad because we already have a 1, flat 3, and 5. And now all I have to do is flatten this 5th degree. So if we play D minor, all I have to do is take this A note, because it's the 5, and flatten it. Bring it back 1 fret. So we get this. There you go, that's your diminished chord. Now the diminished chord is found inside those regular major or minor keys, and it's also found inside the harmonic minor and the melodic minor. So there you go, this was an overview on the first 4 main triads. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can download all of the diagrams of all of these triads, okay? All you have to do is click on the link below, sign up for the free PDFs, and you get all of these. This is like gold, I'm telling you, okay? So let's keep going, and I want to explain the sus2 and the sus4. Alrighty, so same concept. What we need to do for the sus2 is pick the 1st degree, the 2nd degree, and the 5th degree, which means the 2nd degree will take the place of the 3rd. We need to lose the 3rd degree altogether and replace it by the 2nd degree. Here it goes. If we're playing on D, I have D is the 1, E is the 2, and then, 5 was A. We already know that. We've established that. So these are the notes. So let's take the D major or minor it doesn't matter because both of these triads have a 1 and a 5. So what we need to do is lose the 3 and put the 2 instead. So the 3 is F sharp or F. We lose that and we put the E note instead. So in the case of D, it's really easy because all I have to do is that. Okay, there you go. That's a D sus2. Now for D sus4, like the name suggests, we're going to take the 4th degree. So we have D, 2, 3, 4. So 4 is the G note. Okay, same thing. Take that first major or minor shape. I lose the 3 and I put the 4 instead, which is the G note. This one. There you go. Awesome. So that's kind of easy, right? It starts getting complicated when we're trying to play bar chords using the sus2 and the sus4. Here's one more thing you need to know about the sus chords. I don't know if you've already encountered these types of chords, but you might read something that goes like C add 9, right? So a C add 9 is not a sus chord, even though the 9 is the same as the 2. Let me just explain that. Here's the C major chord, and here's the C major scale. And so the degrees are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. 8 is like 1, which means 9 is like 2. Okay, so a C add 9, this chord, is not really a sus chord. It's not actually. So we're not losing the 3rd and switching it with a 2nd degree. Instead, we're keeping the chord as is, keeping the major triad, and we're adding the 9th note. And let's look at the notes. So I have C, which is 1, E, which is 3, G, which is 5, and then the D note, which is 9. And 9 typically is, the higher octave of the 2. But on the guitar, it's not always possible to play it as a higher octave, just like on the piano. So sometimes that 9 could be a 2, which means I could play that C add 9 and figure out a way to include the D note here instead of, up there. All right. Hopefully this answered everything about, the questions you had about the triads. I need to explain one more very important, it's actually crucial, probably the most important thing about this lesson. But first, let's summarize. So a major triad is 1, 3, 5. Minor triad, 1, flat 3, 5. Augmented triad, 1, 3, sharp 5. Diminished triad, 1, flat 3, flat 5. Sus2 triad is 1, 2, 5. Sus4 triad is 1, 4, 5. And now, the most important thing about this lesson is how to find my triads all over the guitar fretboard. Obviously, we can take the long route and the hardest one and just try to figure out where the notes are and try to put them together. However, there's an easier way. We can start by playing the shapes we already know. So let's go back to our D shape again, because we've been doing that with a D. Okay. The highest note is an F sharp. Now I'm going to take that F sharp and I'm going to put it somewhere below. So I'm going to put it on the bass. So that's my F sharp. The lower F sharp I have is this one. So now if I lose this one and put it here, I get this shape. That's another D major triad, right? F sharp, A, D, F sharp, okay? And then now I take the highest note, which is the D note, and I put it on the bass. This is a D note over there, so this is another triad. Now I take the highest note, which is the A, and I put it on the bass, and I get this. See how easy it is now to figure out triads all over. And obviously I could do this from all the other shapes I know. So if you know a bar chord shape like this one, right? If you're starting with this, same concept, right? So this is A, this is F sharp, this is D. I take this one from here and I put it down there. Now I have A, D, F sharp. It's another triad. Now I take the F sharp, put it on the bass. There's another triad. Now I take the D and put it on the bass and I get this. Okay? And same thing for the minor triads, the diminished, the augmented, but I'm gonna have you do that, right? Or else this lesson is gonna get, too long, and we don't want that. Especially right now with social media killing your attention span. Okay, so practice well. If you have questions, just ask, and I'll see you in the next one.